Welcome to Roland's Travels. It's your host, as usual, Roland Millward. Today we have another interview for you. A gentleman who has written over 80 books. He specialises in looking into the past, particularly the history of places, but he's also delved into place names, the origin. Where does the name of your town or village come from? Well, let's talk to Anthony Poulton-Smith right now and find out more about this fascinating subject. Well, I'm pleased to welcome Anthony Poulton-Smith. Anthony, how are you?
I'm very well this morning, Roland, and thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm glad you'll be able to come onto the podcast, and we're looking forward to hearing what you've got to tell us. So, first of all, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you came to be a writer?
First and foremost, I was an engineer until my mid-30s. Worked for 3 companies. I got made redundant 3 times in 4 years, and I thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I was in a position where I was able to choose what I wanted to do. I'd been published a couple of short stories before then, and I thought, what I'll turn to writing. I can't get any lower than I am at the moment. I'm into certain things that were going on, so I decided I'm going to take a correspondence course to learn how to be published. I mean, I knew how to write. That wasn't the problem. So I decided to do that. But I've always had a fascination with language, always. I can't remember a time when I wasn't. When I give talks, I always turn around to people and say, well, how long, surely you can't have been fascinated by language all your life. And I can clearly remember, it may not be my earliest memory, sitting on the kitchen table. Now, that dates it, doesn't it? Sitting on the kitchen table, and Mother was scrubbing away at my knees with a questionable cloth. Long socks, short trousers, and saying, if only. I think she was referring to the crawling around the floor or something like this. So I couldn't have been that old. And I have no idea what the if only was, because it was the word only that was fascinating me. Of course, now I know it's one-ly, which makes sense. But it's like any other word. You say it often enough, it just becomes meaningless and a noise. So etymology has always been my fascination, always. That's how I started writing.
Oh, that's brilliant. Now, from your bio on Twitter, I notice you've written a lot of books. You're quite prolific on the book writing front. So lots of topics I've seen. But one of the topics I'd like to talk about in view of what I do is I visit lots of places. And of course, they've all got a name. And some of the names are quite fascinating in themselves. So I'd like to talk really about place names with you. So what inspired you to write about place names of towns and villages?
Well, the other fascination I've always had is, I can't do it these days because the feet are giving out and the knees, but I've always liked to walk. Especially one of the things I like to do was walk ancient trackways, and you'll find a couple of books on that type of thing as well. So it was almost inevitable with my etymological interests and the walking interests that I would start writing books about place names. I initially wrote a number of articles, and I thought, why not produce a book? I think my first book came out in 96 on the Staffordshire place names. I followed it with Warwickshire, and ever since then I've been going on ever increasing circles around the country. There's still 3 to go, and I'm going to self-publish those in order just to say I've done the set. That's all.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, so that's kept you fairly busy then for a few years, hasn't it?
Yes, there was a time when I was criticised, saying, well, this person can't have done a lot of research because we've had one book on place names come out for every 12 months. And I didn't comment, but of course the answer is, I don't say when they're coming out. The publisher does. They just happen to publish one every month for 12 months. I mean, it looked quite good on the CV, unless people criticise, but never mind.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Well, you'll always get somebody who has a little gripe, something to say.
Absolutely. Yes.
And how wonderful social media is for developing that art.
It's truly wonderful, isn't it? I'm glad I never went into politics. That's all I can say.
You don't even blink, I don't think.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Absolutely, yeah. So thinking about the place names, can you tell our listeners how generally place names have developed across? Well, we'll deal with England. No, they're everywhere, but let's just deal with the UK, as it were.
Yeah, I particularly only written books about English place names. Welsh has me baffled completely. Southern Scotland are largely, anyway, majority of them are English place names, or from the Old English language. The place names, the majority that we see out there, come from Old English, which is very often referred to as Anglo-Saxon. No, it's Old English. If you say it's Anglo-Saxon, it suggests that the Angles and the Saxons, the Jutes and the Frisians brought it with them. They didn't. When they got here, they created the language of Old English, which I suppose like Pidgin English, it would have been, or Pidgin Proto-Germanic or Early Germanic language. It's a beautiful language. I think it's absolutely lovely, as long as you can tolerate the Midlands accent that they would have used. But have a listen to YouTube. The one everybody listens to is Beowulf. Well, that's a bit late. I suggest go for the Lord's Prayer, because you will be able to follow it with one line. One line's different, but the Lord's Prayer in Old English, and you will be able to speak along with it, because everybody knows the Lord's Prayer. So you'll be able to follow that, and you'll be able to listen to what the language is telling you. It's really lovely. It's a simplistic language. They also brought with them an idea. The culture was different, whereas the Celtic peoples that were here before were very much large tribes. These were very much small tribes. 12 to 15 people was sort of the maximum that the Saxons, I'll refer to them generically as the Saxons, that would be the maximum they would be looking at. Much more than that, they would have had to have farmed an area so big that the logistics they wouldn't have been able to cope with it. It would have been too big to manage easily. So 12 to 15 people, and they would speak of, they lived at home. They would speak of the neighbouring villages to associate them exactly where they are. The four most common place names in the country are Norton, Sutton, Aston and Weston. The Northern Ton, or Northern Farmstead, Southern Ton, Eastern and Western Ton. And of course it's relevant to where they are. Somebody living north of them probably call their place Sutton or that type of thing. But the majority have just a description, just telling people what it is. The suffix tends to describe the place, Ton as in farmstead, Ham as in homestead, which is just a bigger building on a farmstead, or sometimes it can be a water meadow, depending on which one you're looking at. Research will tell you. Dun is a hill. Wick is a specialised farmstead. It's all fairly simplistic, but the first element will tell you a little more description, like somebody's farmstead or the Northern Farmstead or where it is or what they do there or something like that. I mean, I suppose the Chiswick would be the one. So it's Cheesewick. So the specialised farmstead, the Wick, is their speciality is cheese.
Cheese.
Or dairy produce, generally, one would think.
Interesting. A little bit like surnames developed as well, isn't it, from descriptions and places and so forth?
Surnames come from place names, nicknames, fathers' names, sort of like Donaldson, Rogers, Richardson, that type of thing, and also nicknames, yes.
Yeah. So it's all interesting stuff. So when people are going around and seeing, or driving along and seeing these village names they're passing through, the kind of key is quite often the ending is quite an easy one. So if it's a Ton or a Ham and so forth, you can get an instant description from that part of it. The other bit you might have to work out and dig a little deeper.
That's it.
But
I say driving around, I do a lot of driving around for talks, and I pass these signs and it drives me nuts. I can't remember exactly what it means or something like that, especially when it talks about people's names. So like Nottingham is famously used to be Snottingham, the homestead of the family or followers of a man called Snot. Now I know that, but I pass other things, and it's the personal names I can never remember. Those are the ones.
There's so many.
There are, I know a lot of them are.
I've got to remember what day of the week it is, Anthony, so you're doing very well.
Yes. Welcome to my life, yes.
So thinking about these names, are there any places that you've researched that you've really been struggling to find any origin of the name for?
There are a number. It's not an exact science. If you can find, ideally what you'd like to find is a record from whenever the place was first founded, or in about anything from 500 to 700 AD. And you hopefully find something every 50 to 75 years thereafter. And then if you look at it in reverse, you can see how the name has developed. You're looking at it backwards, the language they're looking at, the people. It's all written phonetically, so as long as you know more or less where the person came from, you know more or less what his accent was, you know more or less the person who's listening to him, and if you find that suddenly spelling changes wildly, you'll realise that person isn't a native, isn't a local. He may come from Scotland, may come from Ireland, but of course it all sounds different, especially the vowels. But you never find that ever. So you have to sort of put the bits in the middle, and it's not an exact science, but there are amazingly a lot that we don't know for certain. When I'm giving talks, one of the things I'm always asked for is Tardebigge in Worcestershire, which nobody will ever have heard of if it hadn't been for the fact that it's got the longest flight of locks on the canal system in the country. That's about all it's famous for, unless you happen to know that Tardebigge, nobody knows where the name comes from. There's not a clue at all. The other one that I'm very often asked is in County Durham, there's a place called Pity Me, which locals will have, but it comes from the French petit mer, little lake, or little sea, or whatever you want, little water. It doesn't make any sense at all, because, all right, there is a bit of water around there, but it's too late. The French wouldn't have influenced it that much at all. There are only, to my knowledge, 4 purely French place names, and they are not modern in any way, shape or form. They are Norman and up to probably Plantagenets, but that's about it. The place names were named by the locals, much the same as you do today. But there are 2 that we're not sure of that will probably come as a surprise. One is the longest river in the UK, which is the Severn. We do know that the Romans referred to it as Sabrina, and probably that comes from the Celtic goddess as well, heathen goddess that kept the waters flowing. There is Diva, Chester, the River Dee, that's the same thing. So there's a likelihood that is, but we have no idea who Sabrina was. She's not recorded, she's not around. There is names here and there, but not anything to do with the UK. It may be a transferred name, but we're absolutely not sure at all whether even Severn comes from Sabrina. It's close, but it's a bit far out. The one that will surprise you is the City of London. We haven't got a clue where that name comes from. I own a book by a very well-known chap called Adrian Room, who he wrote a book entitled Place Names of the World, and it was done for a publisher in London. And he it's aimed at the English-speaking world, so not only Britain, but America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc. And so he put a lot of American place names in there, which, okay, I put all the states in there and that type of thing. But they sent it back and they said, look, you haven't put London in. And I think at the time it was one of the 3 biggest cities in the world. And, we are in London, it's going to look a bit odd. And he said, well, nobody knows what it means. And I said, well, I put something down, nobody will know. So he put 6 different possibilities in there, knowing that probably all of them are wrong. The likeliest of the 6 is the same as D, as in Diva, which gave its name to Chester, and that is some unknown god or goddess of the Thames, but named Londo apparently, but no. Everybody thinks it comes from the Roman Londinium, but it doesn't. By the time the Romans got here, they had no idea what to name anything. So what they tended to do was Latinicize, horrible word, existing Celtic place names. And that's where it came from. That's all it is. So we don't really know where London comes from.
No. All fascinating stuff, isn't it? But,
sorry, yes.
Yeah.
you wouldn't think that not knowing something could be so fascinating, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's all good stuff. So thinking about the different place names that you've come across, which obviously must run into thousands by now, many thousands. Which place names do you find the most fascinating, and for sort of what reason, if you like?
Right. What I like is a place name which, when defined, can give you almost a snapshot of what's going on at the time. there are lots of places with chipping at the front, and you will also see the street name Cheapside. Cheap is the Old English Saxon word for a market. So Cheapside was where the market was, the road at the side of the market. So this is why we say we didn't get something cheaply, we got something on the cheap, because it's a remnant from an old word. So we got it on the market is what it means. Mm-hmm. And it's probably given us the word meaning inexpensive. There is some argument about that as well, but there are other things. Bentley was he's a very commonplace name. The Lee on the end refers to a natural woodland clearing. It's a nice place to want to live, because you haven't got to cut anything down in order to start your little village or your settlement. You've got the woods around there if you want it. You can gather nuts, berries, whatever. But the reason it is naturally cleared is because it's wet. So the trees can't get a foothold. Because it's wet, it's because it's got springs. So you've got everything you need. You've got building material, you've got a source of food, and you've got water, which is obviously imperative. So that's why it's a good place to live. The name Bentley, the first bit refers to bent grass. Correctly, it's translated as the natural woodland clearing where bent grass grows. Now, on the evolutionary scale, grass is very, very modern. It's the pinnacle, it's the top of the tree. No pun intended there. Grass grows from the tip. So all plants grow from the tip. Grass doesn't. It grows from the base, which is why you can mow it and why it can be grazed. It's evolved to be eaten. So the one thing it doesn't do is grow bent. It grows straight. But because it's required to be grazed or whatever, it'll fall down under its own weight. It has no woody stem. So by knowing bent grass is growing there, we know it isn't grazed. So it must have been shut off from the natural browsers, never mind about livestock, that type of thing. So we know for some unknown reason, this area has been fenced off and nobody touches it. But we don't know why. We haven't got a clue. Could be for many, many reasons. But it gives you a mental image straight away of what the place looked like in Saxon times. Nobody's ever going to paint a field of bent grass, for goodness sake, or the camera wasn't invented. There are a couple of others as well. One of my particular favourites is very much in the news this year, was Windsor. It tells you exactly what it does. I hate the phrase, what it does on the tin. Yeah. Many years ago, if you go to Windsor, in that time, the river would have been quite low down with not steep banks, but muddy banks that would have been difficult to offload anything. And of course, the river level goes up and down. So wonderful engineering comes into play where the aura on the end is the bank. It's a river bank, steep bank. It depends where it is, but it just means bank, really. The wind is not a wind, it's a wind. They've created a piece of technology where they can wind a pallet of goods up from the river into the village, and vice versa if they're shipping it out. So, and again, it's an absolutely wonderful name because it's so easily to picture that name. Picture it in the way it is, and a lot of river names do the same. Ludlow has the Lud, River Lud, but it's the loud one, and that type of thing. Those are the things I like too. It produces an image that we're never otherwise going to see.
No, that's right. You just think about that. People busy on the river, getting the goods in and out and so forth. Yeah.
I mean, one of the questions is, well, where was this thing? People are going to go around, I don't know, with a metal detector or something. Well, it's probably wood for a start off, but you're never going to find any remnants of it, and it was probably moved a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, things that have gone on over the years. It's amazing, isn't it? And that's it. It's nice to know that these are actually in place names as well, that we can learn a bit what happened back in time through the place name. That's good. Well, thanks for that. So obviously, you've written a lot of books on these place names. Where can our listeners find your books if they'd like to get a copy and do some more research and find out where they live, what it's called, etc.?
The bog standard reply is all good bookshops but go to my website, Poulton-Smith without the hyphen, poultonsmith.co.uk, gives you a list of all the books. The The email facility is still not working. I'm working on it, but I'm not an IT bloke, so I'm getting somebody else to work on that for me. It's something very simple I've done wrong, but never mind. But there's an email address up there. Just click on the link and that can get through to me. And you can also get them cheaper from me than anybody else.
That's nice to know then, isn't it? Yeah.
Christmas is coming, and I tell you, most of the subject matter, as already said, is 1,500 years old. So it's not going out of date in our lifetime.
No,
Trust
that's
me.
right. Yeah. It's nice to have books that you can also refer to, I find, as well, because like you said, you'll forget some of these names. You think, what was that name again? And you can go and get the book off the shelf.
Happens to me every time somebody gives a talk. I always make the statement at the beginning. Look, two things it only has to be English place names, and if you're going to question me, please, you have to ask questions that I know the answers to.
Yeah.
And they never do, Simon.
Well, at least you've written your own books that you can go back and refer to.
Yes, there is that.
Oh, Anthony, it's been lovely to talk to you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Again, thanks for the invitation.
I'm sure our listeners are going to click on your website. I'll pop some links everywhere they can find the website to click on as well.
Wonderful.
And, we look for, I think, is it 86 books I last saw on your
86. I've got one coming out in March, which is looking at the potteries. I did one on underground Birmingham, and this is underground in the potteries. And then I've got 3 Yorkshire books on place names coming out, which I am trying to fit in the middle somewhere.
We're going to hit the 90 very soon then, really.
The 90, that's definitely But will I do 3 figures? I can remember years ago when the first one came out, and I thought, will I do 2? And when I done 2, I thought I'll never get to 5. And then no, 10's way out of my league, And all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, it was 50, and now 80 odd. Yes.
Yes. Oh, well done. So once again, thanks ever so much, and we'll keep following you, see how you're getting on, and look forward to those books being published.
Thank you very much, Roland.
Thank you for listening to Roland's Travels podcast today. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We'll welcome you as a regular subscriber and listener to the podcast. We have many more interesting interviews lined up for you, so please do stay tuned, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.